This story began late at night when our main character met a man named Garcia. She looked at him with her big green eyes and immediately recognized this man, although the man kept telling her that she was mistaken. But the girl couldn't be mistaken. She was sure that this blonde, blue-eyed guy was Garcia. And even though this man was incredibly similar to her friend, this situation reminded her of the previous one that happened some time ago. A few weeks earlier, she had met Garcia for the first time, and initially thought that it was Luis. So she asked the man if he was by any chance such a person. In the end, the girl learned a completely new name for herself. His name was Enrique Soli, and she did not understand how this was possible. The main character of this story was sure that the beautiful light brown hair, sky blue eyes, and stately height belonged to Garcia. However, she met absolutely identical, but 3 different people. She accused this man of lying to her. And besides, when she saw the scar under his eye, everything immediately became clear to her. Enrique didn't like the way she behaved, so he simply decided to leave without even explaining anything to her, because he didn't see the point. However, we will find out about this a little later, because in order to tell the story of how the girl met him, it was necessary to remember something from her past. Her name was Monica. The woman who gave her this name was the headmistress of the orphanage, where the girl ended up at a very early age. She said that this name belonged to a famous princess. In a way, it was precious to Monica, so she really loved this name very much. For convenience, the headmistress gave all the residents of the shelter the same last name. So when Monica came to her, she also gave her the last name Orphan. The woman was absolutely certain that the girl would be adopted soon. However, if the child was not taken from the orphanage upon reaching 18 years of age, he would have to bear this surname for the rest of his life. This is what happened to Monica. She came of age and no one took her in. So as an adult, she had the same surname, which was practically no different from the word orphan. She had piercing green eyes, sparkling, neatly styled black hair, and an elegant appearance. When Monica grew up, she needed to learn how to earn a living, so she went to the capital to become a tutor to work for aristocrats. The girl was truly an ideal candidate for this role, so she was incredibly eager to get this job for herself. Several years ago, a brutal war began in the kingdom where she grew up. All this happened a few months before she came of age and left the orphanage. At that time, she learned that recruitment had begun for the medical unit, so she went there. With this work, she would have been able to enter university. However, fate was not always kind to everyone. The kingdom still suffered a defeat after several years of her service in the medical field. But the worst thing was that she never received a salary for this work, and the university she wanted to get into completely destroyed. Therefore, the girl had no future left. But Monica was that person who never despairs, so she was going to be a tutor in the capital, namely in a resort town. It was more of a nanny job than a tutor, but the salary was decent, so the girl was ready to charm her boss as much as she could to get accepted. But before Monica was hired, she asked if the girl was an orphan, because her last name was very strange and atypical. In the end, she had to confess. But fortunately, the employer responded positively to this, so nothing bad happened. But the girl reproached herself more than once for not changing this last name when she had the opportunity. And the reason why she missed this wonderful chance to change her fate was that the girl was very good-natured in childhood. 10 years ago, when the girl lived in the reception center, she helped you and the younger ones study, and she got out. This is really very good. And the people who came to the shelter to take the child were called sponsors. They generally preferred smaller children, because it was easier with them than with older ones. At that time, the girl was 12, and this age, by general standards, was quite old for adoption, so Monica did not even count on anything. But she still, like any child, had hope in her heart. And then one day, a man came to the orphanage who described Monica perfectly. He needed exactly this kind of girl. But also, according to this description, Lilith was very similar, who got along well with Monica. And a few days later, at night, she cried and begged Monica to give up this place to her. She asked the girl to do it somehow. She was really ready to do anything for this. She even promised her an incredible precious brooch, which Lilith brought to the orphanage. The girl had dreamed about it for a long time, because it really was beautiful. But still, Monica wasn't sure whether it was an equal exchange. The girl continued to press her, and gave many examples of how Monica was better than her. And in the end, the girl simply couldn't stand it, and agreed to carry out this plan. The next day, when this plan was carried out on the girl, the headmistress was furious. She beat poor Monica and said that no one would ever adopt her again in her life and that she had lost her chance. The girl sincerely believed these words. She understood that the headmistress was right. No one wanted to teach her to lose a girl over 12, and her former friend never returned. And eventually, when Monica came of age, she simply left the orphanage and began to follow her own path in life. She got a job. Her student was supposed to be a boy, the second and youngest child, who was born quite late. He said that he needed someone who would take care of him because he was still weak from a young age, so they needed a reliable person. There was too much money in the family, so Monica should have received a salary accordingly, which made her happy. But she was still a little afraid of the responsibility that was now on her fragile shoulders. And while she was looking for the way to the hotel in a city unknown to her, she turned to look at the way and did not look ahead. Due to her clumsiness, Monica bumped into a tall, fair-haired man. He immediately asked if everything was okay with her, because the blow was really quite big. When she encountered this man, she immediately recognized him, and because of this, she didn't even say a word. In fact, before meeting in the city for the first time, she met him solo on the battlefield. He was brought to the hospital in a terrible condition. Since the token was half destroyed, she could barely read the name Solo, so the girl did not know his full name. Because his wounds were very serious, he lay unconscious for several months, and at a time when everyone had already given up, he finally woke up. But the joy did not last long, because soon after Saul woke up, the kingdom announced its defeat. The nurse escorted the wounded back without any regrets. By the time Monica arrived, the room was already empty, so she didn't even have time to say goodbye. She cared about him so much, and he didn't even say a word because of all this time. In the end, she didn't even have time to completely remove the bandages, so she wasn't sure what exactly he looked like. But Monica didn't have any doubts when she met him in the city. She immediately started a dialogue with him and told him who she was. But the man looked at her as if she were an idiot. He had no idea what she was talking about. And besides, his name wasn't Saul, so he felt uncomfortable. She didn't understand how this was even possible. After all, they really were very similar, even though she didn't fully see all of his facial features. Of course, the girl asked him for forgiveness for being mistaken, but the man did not perceive this as rudeness. He did not mind, because there really were a lot of similar people in the world. So, it was obvious that she could have confused him with someone else. But in the end, the longer the girl watched this man, the more she became convinced that it really wasn't Saul. His right hand was behind his waist, the etiquette of the Southern Kingdom, and he had good posture, so it simply couldn't be him. The man introduced himself to the shipyards as Lewis, but then suddenly he saw a cart start driving straight towards them, so he managed to react in time to avoid hitting them. He grabbed the girl and removed her from the road, hugging Monica. Of course, she was very embarrassed by this. However, she thanked him for saving her. They talked for a while, and the man offered to accompany her to Silver Square, where the girl needed to go. He even took her suitcase so that she wouldn't be stressed. Unfortunately, during all this time, Lewis did not tell his whole story. Only a little about the fact that he lived near the capital and came to this city to find people he had known before. This man was very friendly with Monica, as if she were his old friend, and she also wanted to tell him why she came to this city. Therefore, they started a really pleasant dialogue. He even straightened Monica's hair several times, which was fluttering in the wind. He behaved openly and friendly, because of which the girl often felt embarrassed. He even gave her a lot of different compliments when they came to the square. Monica was amazed when she saw her. She didn't expect it to be so beautiful. Leaning over, the man said that he was glad to meet them, but it was time for him to go. After all, he had brought her to the right place and should already have been heading off to his business. Monica realized that he really was a nice and cheerful person, and she was sad about the fact that they would probably never meet again because she liked their interaction. As he said goodbye, he even kissed her hand tenderly. It was just a polite moment, but for Monica, it really meant a lot. Also, before his departure, he said that despite the fact that he was not her acquaintance, however, when they met next time, she would already be acquainted with him. Monica called him a heartthrob. The man didn't even deny it. And because of this, her impression of this man was greatly spoiled. Later in the evening, she finally got to her hotel and was very tired. This day had exhausted her. After all, so much had happened. When the next morning came, the girl headed straight to the mansion for work. However, she did not expect that it could be so hot outside, so on the way to this duchy, she even felt sick. On the way, she was already dreaming about how she would spend her first salary. The girl decided that the first thing she would do would be buy herself a new summer hat. She came up with a lot of things for herself that could really help her cope during this hot couple of times, and with these thoughts, she pretty quickly reached the Mullet Mansion. There she was immediately greeted by Nuda, who gave her some wonderful iced tea, which really helped Monica come to her senses a little after the heat. After this, the woman told about the child whom she had to teach. This Martinel is the second son in their family. The woman gave birth to him at a time when heaviness weighed on her soul. She was very worried about his weak body, and when she took care of Martinella, all the troubles disappeared and she found peace of mind. After that, she found out a little more information about Monica, and it turned out that they were the same age as her daughter. Mrs. Amulet's daughter was Layla Malay. Usually, aristocrats get married before they are 20. However, due to the protracted war, the girl was still on her own. Thanks to her angelic heart and hard work, people liked her. So the woman believed that she and Monica could even get along well. Monica had a very good impression of this woman and also of her house. There were antique paintings and old furniture around it. If Monica lived with her mother in such a beautiful mansion, she also would not want to get married, because she was absolutely sure that her daughter had a good relationship with the woman. In the end, the girl was hired, and the owner of the house really liked her. The woman believed that Monica would be able to take good care of her son. She also learned that she now had to live in this mansion, and that she would have a loved one to whom she could turn in case of anything. For Monica, this was the happiest day of her life, and the salary was just amazing. Monica couldn't believe her happiness. She was really happy with such a large sum of money, because she had never had anything like it before. Even the best tutor could not earn so much from her first salary. She would be able to buy herself absolutely all the summer clothes she could want. She was supposed to officially meet Martinel at dinner. However, the children came to meet them much earlier, and they accidentally crossed paths in the corridor. She also introduced Monica to the children and told them who she was and what she would do. But at that moment, the girl looked at Layla, who was standing next to Martin. She had brown hair like Miss Mallet and a fashionable pink striped dress. However, she had very familiar gray eyes that Monica would definitely never forget. It was her old friend Lilith from the shelter who gave her a brooch in exchange for her going to a new family. The girl didn't even have time to say anything because a little boy greeted her. He was very polite and quite smart, after which Layla introduced herself and was also surprised. The woman explained that it was her daughter. She also mentioned that they were the same age, and since they were the same age, they could well become good friends. She thought that would be nice. Layla and Monica reacted rather reservedly, but both were struck by this unpleasant coincidence and did not know how they should behave around each other. She asked her children to take Monica to her room. She was supposed to live next door to the boy. It would be much more convenient that way, so they accompanied the woman as well. On the way, she kept talking about something with Martin. The boy was really incredibly sweet and immediately captured the girl's heart. Martin had soft brown hair and gray eyes, as well as a beautiful and charming smile. He looks quite similar to his mother, but Layla confused her the most because this girl was incredibly similar to Lilith, and she could not get rid of this feeling. Soon, Markin showed his room, and next to it was supposed to be Monica's room. It was without curtains. She tried to go inside, but then suddenly heard Layla's voice. Smiling selfishly, the girl said that there was a warehouse there. Monica did not understand why she behaved this way. After all, they had known each other for a long time, and such behavior was completely unnatural. She had elegant lace gloves that cost like a fortune, and in the end, Layla pointed to the right room that was allocated for Monica. On the one hand, she behaved in a friendly manner, but the girls still didn't like this tense atmosphere between them. Martin also noticed that he did not understand why his sister spoke so harshly. He even thought that she was angry with him and was already upset, but the girl calmed him down and said that everything was fine. She was simply confused because she met the new man. She needed some time to get used to it, and when Monica said her full name, the girl was in a stupor. Martin, meanwhile, moved away from them because he needed to deal with the maid who was taking away his toys. and Layla went into the room prepared for their guest. She told her a few rules, but Monica practically didn't hear her. She was thinking about her own things all the time, and when the girl asked her last name again for the third time, she couldn't restrain herself any longer. She had a strong feeling that it was definitely Lilith. Despite the fact that she had identified herself last night and confused Solo with Lewis, now she was absolutely sure who the girl was. The hair was dyed from black to chestnut, and the hostile attitude towards Monica. It was definitely the same person she had no doubt about, so she decided to call her by her real name. Smiling carefreely, she said hello and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. She was wondering what Lilith would say now. She hoped that the girl would thank her for how she acted, but everything was not so. Lilith did not renounce her identity, but only asked why Monica came. Her voice was very rough. Now they were definitely not old friends, but completely different people. Monica, of course, explained why she came and said that she now works in this place. She even gave me a letter of recommendation and an invitation, but Lilith just took it and tore it into small pieces without even blinking. Monica couldn't believe that she actually did this. The girl immediately rushed over and snatched the letter from her, but it only tore even more and cut the girl's hand. Monica fell to the ground, and Lilith didn't even show any sympathy towards her. She still said in the same detached voice that her lie was very well thought out. However, she was able to uncover it, so the girl no longer had to pretend that she was just looking for a job. She continued to call her Lilith, but the girl no longer accepted this name and gave Monica her letter of recommendation in the form that she considered correct. The girl was very upset. This letter was supposed to confirm her identity, but now she could not give it to Miss Mallet in such a state and did not know how to get out of this situation. Meanwhile, they continued to argue. Monica reminded her of what happened several years ago, and Lilith was very scared. She believed that the girl was here to take her place. She still remained the same insecure lady, but their argument was interrupted by Layla's mother. She forgot to take Monica's letter of recommendation and, seeing that the girls were holding hands, assumed that they had finally become friends. But when she asked Monica for a letter of recommendation, the girl said that she had accidentally damaged it and therefore could not give it to her in its absolutely pristine form. She pointed to a torn piece of paper and said that it had torn when she tried to get it out of her bag. At the same time, the girl also saw a wound on her hand and did not understand where it came from. Layla quickly came up with an idea. She said that Monica had scratched her hand, and the nail that was sticking out of the door was going to help her and bring a bandage. Monica was shocked at how easily she lied to her mother, but eventually she explained the whole fictitious situation to her new employer, who did not believe in this random act. After looking at the torn sheet, she said that it looked as if it had been torn on purpose. Layla confirmed this information. She said that she was also surprised when she saw all this, but of course, her mother immediately suspected that something was wrong. She realized that the girl was lying to her, and when Layla began to shake with fear, she only confirmed her guess. The girls started arguing among themselves, and Monica just watched what was happening. She was now sure that it was Lilith, because the habit of holding onto her dress when she was scolded remained with her even after so many years. She heard a story about her mother. One day, when she was in the studio, they sewed her a dress whose hem went all the way to the bottom. Miss Mallet wore a dress that did not fit her height. She almost fell and was caught by Duke Notoginsky, thanks to which they fell in love with each other, and she married him. Of course, this was only possible for girls from well-off families, so Layla couldn't even dream of it. Even though the girl really wanted something like this to happen to her, she didn't believe it. But she had one young man with whom she was in love, and it was Lord Sullivan. Layla also said that she was very sorry that Monica's letter of recommendation was torn. She admitted that it happened because of her. In the end, her mother did not scold her anymore and changed the subject of the conversation. After they had a nice conversation, Monica was left alone in her room, and in her thoughts, the girl realized that a rather difficult life was now awaiting her. However, she was used to it. When dinner came, the whole family decided to have this meal. Monica really liked the food and was grateful to the Duchess for allowing her to be present. Also, in order for Monica to easily start lessons with Martin, she had to find out about his preferences and strengths. Her mother did not object to Layla doing this. Well, the boy, having heard about this, objected strongly because he wanted to do it himself. They began to argue among themselves, and Monica simply sat and watched this. After dinner, when it was time for Martin to go to bed, Layla accompanied Monica to show them their daily rituals. Every time before going to bed, we had to measure his temperature so that it didn't rise, and then make the bed. After everything was done, Layla and Monica went to the girls' room because she wanted to talk to her about something there. And the second one did not object. Sitting up on the bed, Layla immediately said that her mother noticed that they were lying and were thinking about what to do. Monica didn't like what the girl was saying at all, because she wanted her to lie to poor Miss Mallet again, and the girls didn't like it at all. In fact, Miss Olin came to see her before dinner, and she met the other servants when the head maid showed her the whole mansion. They told her about the mansion and the family that lived there, and Monica concluded that Lolita was adopted before moving to this mansion, so all the servants considered her their own. In the end, no one knew about it. And so Layla was afraid that one of these people might find out that she was adopted. So it was quite natural that she was afraid of Monica. The woman told her ex-girlfriend everything she thought about and believed her that the girl only needed money, and that's why she came to this place to work and not to ruin her life. Monica was poor, and by the time she reached adulthood, she had already worked many jobs, and for some events, she was not paid for her work as a nurse, so she did not even have money to rent a room in a hotel. And then this wonderful job with decent pay appeared, and thanks to Miss Mallet, Monica was able to have her first hearty dinner in a very long time. Therefore, they simply agreed that Layla would perceive her as a teacher who works in their house, and they would communicate accordingly, and she would never remember Lilith again. She looked at her ex-friend with suspicion for a while, but eventually she stood up and said that now everything was clear to her and she was not against such conditions. After this, Monica was finally left alone in the room. She felt a strong heaviness in her soul and tiredness from the whole day, but she still needed to unpack her things. It was already getting dark outside, so she wanted to do it as quickly as possible. And as soon as she opened the suitcase, the very brooch that Lilith had given her immediately fell into her hand, and the girl had already completely forgotten about it by this time. Monica had a difficult night. She barely slept because of her worries and anxieties, but she needed to wake up early, so the first thing she did was change her clothes and go to the kitchen. There, a maid named Marie handed her breakfast, and Monica asked if there was a market nearby, as she still needed to buy some more things. But the girls had to go all the way to the train station to the main square. Then Mary called their gardener Hans, who was also going to the city, so she suggested that Monica go with him. Despite the fact that the man seemed rather stern in appearance, he was very kind at heart, so he did not refuse, and they met together near the gate and went there. On the way, they had a nice conversation about various things. And when they got to the market, Hans had to go to the forge and also showed her where the things the girl needed were supposed to be sold. They agreed on a meeting place near which they were supposed to meet and went their separate ways. Monica felt uncomfortable because the man was really very kind and for some reason even began to irritate her. But still, his company wasn't that bad. In the end, she went into a small shop and found a straw hat and a comb for herself. There, Monica saw beautiful ribbons of different colors. She decided to buy it for herself, even though they were really very expensive. The girl had long dreamed of having a straw hat with a ribbon, so after she bought everything, she did not regret the money she spent, because soon she was supposed to be paid a large sum for the week, so they would soon pay for themselves. She was already planning to return to the meeting place with the Ghanaian. However, for some reason, she was never able to get there. The girl simply kept turning the wrong way and ended up getting lost. She went into some very strange alley, where there were a lot of men sitting, who were just drinking in the middle of the street, and looking at Monica strangely. Because of this, she became even more scared. And so while the girl was walking, she again accidentally bumped into a light-haired man. She asked him for forgiveness and asked if everything was okay, because they bumped heads. But when Monica looked up from where she had fallen and saw the same blue eyes as the sea and blonde hair, she thought that she had met Louis again. But when she called him by that name, the man was incredibly angry and yelled at her, asking why she was talking about this idiot in front of him. Monica tried to explain the whole situation, but the man was very stubborn. He continued to call Louis names and eventually pushed her away and simply left, saying that it was Louis who was spreading dirty rumors about him. When the girl saw that her hat was dirty due to this collision, she ran and caught up with the man and scolded him for simply leaving after such an incident. She said that she paid a lot for all her things and he had stained them, so she was not going to let this man go anywhere until he had paid her back for the damage he had done. And while they were arguing among themselves, some men appeared behind them. They were holding weapons in their hands and were clearly drunk and also very angry at this fair-haired guy. The stranger simply wished Monica good luck and ran away with a wink, saying that he hoped that she would survive in the end. They immediately ran after her, and she herself hoped that they would leave her alone. But one of the hooligans grabbed her by the hand and asked who she was. Monica tried to get out of this situation and explained everything to them in a civilized manner. But the men did not believe her. They were going to throw her in a ditch, and then this lover of hers would definitely not be able to find her. The man even swung a hammer at her. Monica could not believe that now, in this strange and lonely alley, she was about to meet her death, and because of this, she was very scared. But luckily, this blonde guy came back, and he yelled at these idiots and told them to let her go because she had absolutely nothing to do with it. People called him Garcia and immediately started calling him names. His boyfriend, without even approaching them, continued to insist on his own. He wanted this girl to be released. The men again refused to do this. The guy went on the offensive. He beat up all these hooligans and thus was able to save Monica from a terrible end in a dark alley. But when one of the last guys fell, he accidentally hit the girl, and she fell after him and hit her head quite hard. She completely did not understand what was happening, and out of despair, she even burst into tears. She thought that this fair-haired man was Louis, and hoped that she had met at least one acquaintance, but this turned out not to be the case. Because of her, bandits attacked him, and now she also hit her head. Monica felt like a small, defenseless child and did not know how to act next. The guy was very shocked. He asked why she was crying and suggested that it was because she was scared. But the girl made it clear with her whole appearance that it was because she had hit herself hard and was now in pain. Eventually, this stranger with an incredibly familiar face helped Monica stand up, and she looked down to see how badly her dress was damaged. It was the only beautiful dress she had worn for several years, but now it was ruined. When Monica stumbled and almost fell, the man grabbed her and helped her stay on her feet. At that moment, her hair came loose, and he saw how beautiful she was. Garcia couldn't take his beautiful blue eyes off her. He even felt a little embarrassed and continued to hold her hand for a while. But the girl was very angry with him. She screamed and said that he was to blame for everything and continued to scold him like a little child in front of the whole street. She asked him to buy her a new dress as compensation for the damage as a sign of apology. Garcia certainly didn't expect this, and that's why he was starting to get angry now. Monica explained what happened and why he had to do it, but they both heard one of the hooligans start to wake up, so they agreed that they needed to get away. They returned towards the market and sat simply on the steps. Monica had torn knees and a torn dress. Garcia sat next to her and nervously smoked a cigar. Neither of them even looked at the other. And so, while they sat in silence, the man spoke first. He said that she was just a ponytail. He named her that because she had a ponytail. He even suggested she change her name to Seaweed because her hair was loose and looked incredibly similar. Monica, of course, started yelling at him and getting indignant. However, the man suddenly grabbed her hand and told her to calm down because he'd saved them anyway, so there was nothing to worry about. Eventually, Monica managed to get compensation from him for her things, but not before he took her to a fountain and washed the dirt off her hands. The girl felt very uncomfortable about this. However, then the man noticed the wound on her leg and tore off a piece of his shirt. He carefully rinsed the cloth in water and washed her knees, which were all covered in blood, and was also going to tie a bandage on her to reduce the possibility of infection. Monica was already completely red from embarrassment. She didn't understand what he was doing at all. She certainly believed that it was his fault. However, in the end, she did not become angry with him, because he still came back and helped her, and she also decided that for her own well-being, it would be best for her to simply look around on the street. But then he said that he was glad that they were not at war. If he had been a wounded soldier, they would not have been able to take care of him as well as he did. And Monica did not blame him, because in order to have time to cure everyone, each patient was surprised by the limited amount of time, and she felt this on herself. But she was interested in how the man found out about this. And after a short silence, she took courage and asked if he happened to know Louis. The guy again frowned and answered her rudely, and she realized that this was a sore subject for him. Monica still didn't understand why they had such identical faces, and suggested that perhaps he could be his brother, but then, looking more closely, she saw the same scar under his eye. The guy explained that Louis said he couldn't work because of him, but he had money. So he decided to compensate the girl for the damage and buy her a new dress. They were about to leave right now, but then suddenly Monica remembered that she had been asked to meet Martin during the doctor's visit that evening. That's why she stood up abruptly and was about to run away. The man, of course, asked when they should meet in that case, because he knew how to keep his words and really wanted to compensate her for the damage. As a result, they agreed to meet on Saturday at lunchtime in the same place, on the main square in front of the fountain. Monica also warned him that if he did not come, she would kill him with her own hands, and ran away. The man was sincerely amazed by her confidence, because she didn't even know where he lived. So of course she couldn't do it, even if she wanted to. Monica managed to run back home pretty quickly. When the maid saw the state the girl returned in, she was incredibly angry at Hans and called him all sorts of names. Maria even decided to show kindness and sew her a new dress. The girl was not against it. She quickly went upstairs and changed. She had to put on a rather warm dress. After all, it was the only normal dress left in her wardrobe. So she went to Martin's bedroom where his doctor had already met her. His name was Mikkel. He was Monica's personal doctor. She sat down opposite him, and the guy said that the guy was washing his face after a mud massage. And when the girl sat down, her dress rode up a little. The doctor saw that she had a bandage on her leg and wanted to take a look and also treat this wound. She saw that he took a painkiller, which was very expensive. Then the man asked if she was really a doctor, and Monica told him about her previous job. While the man was treating her early, he mentioned something about green pills, and the girl was horrified. Old, unpleasant memories of green pills came flooding back to her. They were medicine for patients who went crazy on the battlefield. Some people said that they felt better when they took them, while others simply went completely crazy and ended their lives prematurely. After the leg was treated, Monica took the fabric that was bandaged around her leg. She decided to take the remains of his shirt to that rude man. Otherwise, it would be unpleasant to throw it away. After he started bandaging her leg with another bandage, Monica decided to get down to business and asked what she could do for Martin. She eventually learned that he could really use some fresh air and moderate exercise. On the doctor's recommendation, they had to go out for a walk at least twice and adhere to the medication schedule. In other words, not prohibit the boy from doing anything. And all because his body was weak, the temperature rose due to every bad emotion, and they were truly a real poison for children like Martin. The doctor explained everything in detail to Monica, and even gave her the medicine she needed for those cases when the guy would get injured. Meanwhile, the boy had already returned from washing and immediately approached his teacher. He was very glad to see her. When the doctor left, Monica suggested the guy go for a walk, and, of course, he was very happy about it. And while they were walking through the garden, Monica asked Martin if he had ever been to the port. The boy admitted that he had never been there, and Monica told him that their port worker's uniform was very similar to his outfit, so he didn't have to be embarrassed about it. They also talked about clothes, and the guy gave his teacher advice to go to one store. He also said that Miss Violet also likes to dress there. Monica heard this name for the first time, and when Martin started talking about this girl, he even missed her very much. She was a really important person for him. She was 14 years old, a little older than the guy. However, he asked the teacher to keep it a secret. This girl read a lot of books, and therefore the guy considered her quite smart and also very beautiful. She had long red hair and beautiful blue eyes. Then Monica swore that she would never tell anyone about this secret, and decided to ask him a little about her sister in order to learn more about Layla. And while they were walking around the backyard, they saw Layla, who was in the garden, picking roses with the gardener. The girl, as always, looked very elegant and beautiful, and when Monica saw her again, she became wary. She did not know what kind of communication awaited them. The brother and sister had a really warm and close relationship. He ran up to her and hugged her tightly, saying that he loved her incredibly much. Monica could not even imagine that they had such a trusting relationship. However, she was glad to see that Martin had a close person. They talked for a while, after which the teacher and the boy left, and Layla was incredibly angry at Monica. She still couldn't even be near her. That same evening, Monica was sent to help the servants prepare banquets in honor of the Countess's birthday. And the guy really hoped that he would be able to meet Violet there, because the first time they met was at the banquet. Martin asked the girl to be with him that day, because he could be very worried. So Monica had to closely monitor his condition and help if necessary. Monica, of course, did not object to going to this banquet. However, she did not have suitable clothes, and because of this, she felt awkward. But the Countess said that she didn't have to worry about it and could choose one of Layla's dresses. And the tailor had to tailor it to her measurements, and that's exactly what happened. Monica immediately went to choose a dress so as not to delay the matter. They came to Layla's room, but the girl was very angry and indignant because she had not chosen a dress herself, and they could not find one for Monica either. The girl even yelled at the tailor and told her to leave. The girls left, and both felt awkward after this situation. The tailor apologized to Monica and said that even though Monica was not such a picky person, she still needed a suitable dress for this banquet. But Layla was not going to give them the right dress. After that, Monica went about her business. In fact, when she first saw Layla in lace gloves and a chic dress with a trillion in lace, she promised herself that she would definitely earn money and buy herself something similar. However, due to Monica's mistake, in the past, servants took such good care of her and she had money and luxurious dresses. But the girl herself only had a job that she had to do flawlessly. And Monica came to the conclusion that even after so many years of working on herself, she still continued to compare herself to Layla, and it irritated her insanely. Several days passed from that moment, and Monica finally went to meet the very man who was supposed to buy her a dress. The right time had already arrived, but he was still nowhere to be found. Well then, she heard a familiar voice behind her, and turning around, she saw a tall man with blonde hair in an expensive suit. She immediately recognized him. It was Louis. The man smiled, kissed her hand, and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and also asked how she was doing. Monica was incredibly shocked and immediately asked what happened to Garcia. After all, she was supposed to meet him, but Luis explained that the guy sent him that day due to certain circumstances. Luis explained the whole situation, why he had to show up instead of Garcia, and Monica still didn't understand practically anything, but she had no choice but to accept it. The man was not against paying for her dress, hat, and ribbon, but he pretended that it was a big blow for him because he did not understand why he had to do this. Of course, the men were deliberately playing on pity, but in the end, they ended their dialogue with a hint of flirtation and went to the desired store. Louis took her to an incredibly expensive boutique, and Monica, of course, began to refuse because she had heard about it from Martin, but the man waved his hand and said that it was not a problem. As soon as they entered, the man himself wanted to choose a dress for the girl, so he asked the saleswoman to show him the best dresses in their assortment. While the saleswoman went off to look at some options, Louis openly flirted with Monica, which made her even more furious because she didn't want it. But soon the woman returned and asked what the girl's preferences were regarding her dress. Monica immediately said that it should be a light dress that flutters in the wind but not too revealing. After this, the saleswoman brought all the suitable options. Monica immediately chose the most modest gray color, but Louis, of course, began to dissuade her from this. He wanted to pamper the girl because she interested him in some new way, so he offered her a beautiful white and green dress that perfectly suited Monica. Of course, before this girl always thought that such bright colors did not suit her. However, now when she saw herself in the mirror, she realized that this was really the right option for her. She looked amazing in it. Monica tried it on and finally agreed to this option, and Louis told the saleswoman to wrap it up quickly before the girl changed her mind. When the saleswoman asked if they were married by any chance, since they were a very beautiful couple, the man said that he had only recently stepped off the ship onto dry land, but was already thinking about building a new future. Louis, with his charm and persistence, eventually persuaded Monica to try on other outfits, and so the girl already had several new dresses that were wrapped in elegant boxes. They also went to a nearby coffee shop to celebrate. Monica looked at the man with great contempt because she still felt uncomfortable with the fact that he decided to pamper her like that. But she promised that as soon as she earned some money, they would definitely pay for all these dresses because she could not accept such expensive gifts. They decided to talk a little about each other and learn more new things. Monica learned that Louis had many sisters, and that is why he knew well all kinds of fabrics that the girl herself did not even know about. And she told the man that before she was busy making a living, however, just like now, she didn't even know what kind of underwear she wore. It didn't bother her in any way. Louis continued to flirt with her and give the girl various compliments, so Monica decided to move their topic in another direction and asked if he was really a doctor. That evening, she learned that Louis was a medical student and was only recognized as a doctor after the end of the war. His story was incredibly similar to Monica's, because she wanted to go to college, but she never made it because she grew up in an orphanage and always had to make her way on her own. After leaving the orphanage, she wanted to go to college, but because of the war, she went into nursing. When Louis listened to this fascinating story, you looked at Monica with tenderness and seemed to be trying to remember every word she said. The girl felt a little uncomfortable about this, but at the same time it was pleasant. After all, they were seeing him only for the second time, but she felt a warm and friendly energy from him, so she got the impression that they had known each other all their lives. They sat like that for quite a long time. However, Monica still kept an eye on the time and said that it was time for her to go back because they had bought a lot of things. Louis decided to call her a carriage so that she could get there safely. The girl didn't even deny it because she really couldn't have gotten there on her own. She told the coachman the address. And then suddenly, Louis's mood quickly changed. The cab driver started loading the boxes, and the guy grabbed her by the hand and led her somewhere to the side, telling her to behave quietly. After that, he led her through the arch, and there the girl saw Layla, who was happily talking about something with two ladies. And after that, she left in her carriage. Monica looked at him in surprise and immediately asked if his girlfriend was really there, since she had no other explanation for the reason he brought her. The man was a little embarrassed and didn't respond to her normally. In the end, the girl left and said that they would definitely see each other again, and she advised him not to do anything stupid. She also asked Louis a few questions, to which he did not answer. Alyosha said that Garcia would tell her himself if he considered it necessary, and after that, their paths diverged. The man was glad that he spent the day this way. However, he still thought that it would be better if he didn't meet with her anymore. Later in the evening, the girl finally returned to the estate, where Hans met her and said that all the servants were busy and had not taken her things to her room. But everything was fine. Monica could do it on her own. She even talked to the man who offered to help her carry these boxes. Even though they were incredibly heavy for him, she was a little surprised by how Hans reacted, because all this time Louis carried them with ease, so she didn't even suspect that they could be heavy. Before leaving upstairs, Hans suggested that after the banquet, Monica go with the rest of the servants and have a drink. The girl asked for forgiveness, but refused, as she was not yet entirely sure of her plans for that evening. But he simply asked her to think about it all when Monica entered the room and was left alone. Some kind of heaviness appeared on her heart, and the girl did not understand what it was connected with. But in fact, she still felt uncomfortable because she had accepted so many expensive things from Louis. And on the bed, she also saw Layla's dress that the tailor had brought her. When the next day came, Monica put on her new dress and met with the doctor who, for some reason, considered all the people in this town strange. The doctor was also irritated by all these banquets, so he did not want to show up for it that evening. But Monica, seeing his smart appearance, was very surprised because he was dressed just for the event. He had to show up even if he didn't like it, because as a doctor, he had to look for sponsors for himself, and he could only do this at banquets like this. The man also warned Monica to be careful because she mentioned this man to him, and the doctor found him quite unpleasant and perhaps even dangerous to some extent. Monica was very shocked by the terrible things he said. However, she did not deny the fact that she essentially did not know him and could not claim to be absolutely sure of him. And while they were having a nice conversation about this doctor's past, Martin ran up to them. He was dressed in a gray formal suit, just right for a banquet. Monica complimented him, and after that, the guy noticed her new dress and said that it suited her perfectly. After some time, the banquet was already in full swing. Many aristocrats were dancing, some were drinking, and simply chatting. Monica was delighted with the atmosphere that reigned around her. She had never seen such a luxurious banquet and could not believe that she was actually present at something like this. Some man even approached her and asked her to dance. Of course she refused. You see, she thought that there was no place for her at this banquet. But pretty quickly, Barton took her out of the main hall and took her back, because he thought that Violet had gone to the fountain, and he of course had to go there. When Monica saw that very girl, she thought that she was quite cute. Violet, seeing Martin already approached, came up to say hello and bowed and asked who it was next to him. The guy was very embarrassed, but he immediately replied that it was his tutor. Monica behaved quite friendly and sweetly, although she wanted to laugh at the situation all the time. And while the children were talking, Monica learned that there were going to be fireworks very soon. It was a tradition and a source of pride for their family. Martin also talked about his family history. Everything was quite accessible and understandable. His family grew quite large by supplying gunpowder to the war, so they owed their success to the war, as strange as it may sound. At first, the kingdom boasted that they were definitely winning thanks to the help of the Mallets, but they lost. When Monica heard about all this, memories of the horrors of war immediately came to her, and all the ideas of blood that she saw, explosions and fire, as well as relatives who were beside themselves with grief after learning the news about their sons. She had a very bad stomachache, and because of this, she started to feel sick. Martin immediately worried about the woman, but she said that everything was fine. Because she needed to step away a little to come to a normal state, she asked Maria to look after Martin and ran away. The girl wanted to get away as quickly as possible from this place where everything reminded her of the war, and soon she found a quiet corner in the garden. There was a bench, and not a soul nearby. She sat down, her hands continued to tremble. The girl was shocked by the news she heard, and still could not calm down. Of course, Monica could not even imagine that this family could supply gunpowder for the war. The kingdom could have simply surrendered, and there would not have been so many deaths if not for this family. Every time she thought that this family had a simply amazing mansion, and even envied them. However, now, being next to these terrible people and knowing the whole story, it even became disgusting. And besides, she remembered how proud Layla was of such a family, and this made her feel even worse, because the girl probably couldn't even imagine what each of them had gone through. However, Monica understood that she couldn't dwell on all this, because the war had already ended long ago. And besides, it was the king who had started it, not this family. The girl also came to the conclusion that if she had not given up her place to Layli, then it would have been her fault too. So she could not condemn anyone just because she did not like someone. She decided to turn her thoughts in another direction and remembered that Layla had an affair with the son of the Solowan family. He was the son of one of the most famous and richest families in the country, and Layla was supposed to be the mistress of the house and soon just leave because of this place. And Monica certainly could not help but be envious of the fact that she got even the best groom for the child she would bear Layla and the jewelry that she would wear all the time. This girl will have absolutely everything that Monica could only dream of. Therefore, the girl decided that she would just have to leave. Everything was perfect in this place. This city was rich and had a large annual salary, very large services, and a kind boy whom she was supposed to look after. But Monica didn't know if she could withstand all this tension. This whole place seemed to be pressing on her, and at some point, it even seemed to her that she couldn't cope. But she didn't dwell on her thoughts for long. She still needed to finish some things, and when she was about to leave, she heard someone's voices nearby. Monica stood on a hill, and looking down, she saw Layla in the back of the head of a fair-haired man whom she had not met before at the banquet. Layla was talking about something with this man, and soon Monica heard her even confess her love to him. When the girl looked more closely at this man, she immediately recognized him and his voice. It was Louis Verfay. Now she understood why he was avoiding Layla, but the girl couldn't stay there. This whole situation had nothing to do with her, so she shouldn't have heard this conversation at all. She was about to leave alone to cook when she suddenly heard a man tell Layla that he didn't need her heart, and then Monica couldn't just walk around. She became incredibly interested. Layla started yelling and cursing at him, and the man doubted whether the girl even understood what exactly he was talking about and what he wanted to convey to her, namely, the fact that the girl wants to sell herself to him somehow var. And it was even unpleasant for him to hear about it. I couldn't believe that she looked exactly like that from the outside. Monica was very scared at the time. Of course she didn't want to be noticed, so she ultimately decided to leave there as quickly as possible. But by chance, she stepped on a toad, and of course the animal made a loud sound, so the couple who were discussing their personal moments heard it. Monica immediately hid, but when Louis asked who was there, and said that he would go check now, the girl understood that it was pointless, so she still showed herself to them. The girl apologized for accidentally overhearing all of this, and also said that she did not do it on purpose and everything like that. But Louis, even after the explanation, looked quite angry. He said that it all seemed wrong. However, Monica, in the meantime, decided to ask her question because he was incredibly similar to one person. She looked the man straight in his big blue eyes and asked if you were Luis or Garcia. Meanwhile, Layla began to join their conversation. He, of course, yelled at Monica and said that she was completely unprofessional and began to blame her for everything. But Louis calmed her down and said that she would take care of everything and also told her to leave and that he could really calmly deal with this girl. Monica, when she listened to all his explanations, was very surprised because for Garcia, he spoke too authoritatively and was dressed all in black, so he was definitely not Louis. So she had to find out who this person was this time. Layla called him a Sullivan. Monica then thought that since that was the case, it had to be Garcia. Eventually, the couple stopped arguing with each other, and Layla finally left. The two of them were left alone and were silent for a while. But Monica was the first to break the silence. She turned to the man and called him Garcia and also apologized for overhearing him. This guy, who looked incredibly similar to both Luis and Garcia, was very surprised to hear the girl. He asked how she even knew this name. Monica explained everything to him, but then suddenly the man stunned her with his answer. Because he was not Garcia, his name was Enrique. Monica thought that he was even lying because all three had the same face, only their names were different, so she was already thinking that she was starting to go a little crazy. At that moment, the girl suddenly had some familiar feeling, and it was connected with the time when she was a nurse. She began to remember something, but she could not clearly remember because the man turned to her again. He said that despite the fact that eavesdropping on conversations is the business of rats, she should have understood that she was doing bad things. And he asked what exactly from their conversation with Lady Layla the girl heard. Monica did not understand what was happening. The man moved closer to her, and then she saw again the wound near his eye. The girl did not understand at all then. The man was not going to waste any more time on her. He had already started to leave, but she grabbed his hand and stopped him, while their argument was interrupted by fireworks that began to come from different directions. Then Monica realized that this is exactly what Martin was talking about. The fireworks were truly beautiful. All the guests enjoyed the view, but Monica felt uneasy about it. She got carried away by all this and did not immediately notice that Enrique felt very ill. He grabbed the wall and sweat was pouring down his forehead. It was clear that something was wrong with the man. She immediately ran up to him and tried to calm him down. Monica asked him to let her look at him. She noticed that his breathing was labored. The girl immediately realized that this was exactly what it was. It was post-traumatic stress disorder, a panic attack, so she quickly grabbed him from behind and laid him on the ground. The man didn't even resist. Then she completely unbuttoned his shirt and began to listen with her ear to his breathing. It was very intermittent. Monica had to restore him so that he would not suffocate completely. She only asked that he obey her instructions and repeat. The girl began to press hard on his chest and count when he needed to inhale. And when he needed to exhale, the guy immediately began to repeat it all. And at the moment when Monica saw all this, the final memory came to her. When she was a nurse, she often saw something similar. People who heard loud sounds cried or couldn't breathe. It was all the same with Enrique. Now Monica realized that this guy couldn't free himself from this war and was forever traumatized. The girl began to explain everything to him in a calm voice. She said that it was a Malit mansion and not a battlefield. The war was already over and everything was calm, so he did not have to worry. Soon Enrique really came to his normal state. He sat and just looked at the girl. Monica explained that everything was fine. She often saw such behavior and asked if he was a military man. The man did not answer her. He only asked her to leave, but Monica insisted and asked if he had taken the so-called green medicine. But even if he hadn't answered positively, Monica would have understood everything right away. In fact, during that terrible war, the army gave a similar medicine to soldiers who had suffered serious injuries. However, side effects of taking this drug were later discovered. Over time, the soldiers' symptoms only worsened, and it stopped working. They saw various hallucinations. And later, because of this mistake, a really big tragedy occurred in which many people died. The use of this drug was eventually naturally discontinued, which is why Dr. McKell was interested in this drug when she spoke to him recently. Among the nurses, only a few knew how to prepare this medicine. Now, after the end of the war, it was not even known where they ended up. And no one saw people who took this medicine and were fine, because there were no such people left. Everyone showed side effects, some to a greater extent and some to a lesser extent. Monica, of course, reassured the man. She wasn't going to tell anyone about it, but only asked him to answer her one question. The girl called him by 3 names and said that they all had a scar on their right eye, very thin. And if you look closely, you can easily recognize it. She touched this scar and asked what he was doing and what game he was playing. Enrique was very angry. It was obvious he understood that he had found himself in a situation he had not even expected to find himself in. And only in an irritated voice, he asked if I should answer this. The girl, of course, said that he shouldn't have done this. However, if he doesn't answer, he won't learn valuable information for himself. For example, about the son of the Solowan family, whom she once met. The man became even more angry. He stood up abruptly and said that she had been incredibly rude. Monica took it calmly. She had not expected any other reaction. She pointed to everything, these clothes and the wounds she received. She called him by different names, but Enrique did not understand. What kind of nonsense was she doing, and what kind of game was she playing now? In fact, Monica knew that there were people among the aristocrats who sometimes got stuck in romantic novels. They dreamed of escaping the responsibility that came with their status. They are the category of people who engage in charity work while owning stolen property. Since not all people in the world have to be honest, their devotion to their desires is not a sin. However, Monica did not know what exactly these people could get by playing such roles. But at that moment, Martin interrupted the girl from her conversation and thoughts. He said that the fireworks had already started, and he didn't know what to do. However, seeing his teacher with some man next to him, he was very surprised and immediately fell silent. Monica, of course, explained everything to him so that he would not imagine too much. He greeted Mr. Salt and also told him about his teacher. She was not only his teacher, but also a nurse. The guy also said that she had previously worked as a nurse during the war. So now he was completely afraid of nothing and was ready for any challenges. Edwin, upon hearing this, immediately became wary. And when he also found out where exactly she worked as a nurse, he froze, looking at the girl in surprise. He didn't even have time to answer because Martin simply took the teacher and led her away because he needed her help with Violet. Luckily for Monica, the rest of the banquet went well. Nothing else happened. And in the evening, she returned to her room incredibly tired. After the banquet, the young lady gathered all the servants and rewarded them properly. And now, when Monica looked back, she realized that she needed to leave at that very moment, and then perhaps everything would have been fine. But suddenly, the man's identity was so interesting to her that she didn't do it. She was wondering who he really was, Luis Garcia or Enrique, and why he even started this whole game with different people. For her, it was really something very incomprehensible. She even thought about the fact that it could, in theory, be a scammer who was posing as a real Salt. And that's precisely why he behaved so strangely, simply because he didn't know how it really should be. Some people said that his family was of northern origin, so she doubted that anyone from the southern city could know what he looked like in person. That is why his deception would be much harder to uncover. But what alarmed Monica most was Layla, because the next day after this, the girl began to treat her quite kindly, and this was something unusual. For example, when she was having lunch, she invited Monica to her place. But in fact, the girl believed that she did this only to keep an eye on her and, if necessary, to stop her in time. All this was because Monica knew her important secret that she was caught, and also the truth that she is asking a man to marry her and take her away. Even though this man himself does not want anything like this, of course. For Layla, it would be too humiliating if someone found out. In the end, a week passed from that moment, and Monica gradually began to get used to this place. She even wore the clothes that Louis bought for her without any embarrassment. One calm day, when the girl was playing with Marcel, Layla suddenly called her to her, and the girl was very surprised. Monica didn't even know where she was called, but soon she went out into the backyard and saw that Layla was not alone. She was with her so-called lover. The girl was very scared. She did not understand why they called her so suddenly. But eventually, she found out that they wanted to talk. The man, immediately after the maid left, bowed and thanked her for keeping his secret. It really meant a lot to him. After that, he asked Layla to leave. The girl reluctantly left them alone, and then the man asked her another question. Since he heard that she worked at the Orbita hospital, he became interested in how much she knew about the green medicine. Monica immediately explained that if he needed this medicine, she was not going to make it. She simply did not even know how it could be done. She saw his indifferent expression and said that this medicine was prohibited. The girl was very angry with him and even started yelling. When the use of the green medicine was stopped, most of the soldiers suffered greatly, ignoring the side effects, and became dependent on this medication. Addicts asked nurses to prepare this medicine for them, for which they gave absolutely everything, from a pack of cigarettes to even gold rings. Of course, the medicine worked, but only for a while, because they suffered from hallucinations, so it was just a vicious circle from which they could not escape. Monica told the man about the side effects and explained that they were incredibly strong, so she did not understand why he decided to look for this drug that only caused harm. But the guy explained that last week, on the day when the banquet took place, she saw everything with her own eyes. And then Monica understood what he was talking about, because that day the symptoms were like those of people who were injured in battle. However, she doubted whether an aristocrat like him could go to war and see everything that others saw. She thought that this would be an occupation for others, so it would be strange to see a person of his level among all the others. Monica decided to cheer him up and said that in order to prevent this from happening again, he could simply not look at the fireworks and avoid such loud sounds. But the man explained that everything was much more difficult than she thought. Of course, at that moment, he didn't even know what was happening. She had to listen to him, and therefore the man hoped that in this case, she would want to help him at least a little. He was the second son of the Sable family, but now he is the first after some events that happened in their family. His family was responsible for the kingdom's troops, and he was a colonel. His deceased brother was in the same status. The point is that the man himself could not get rid of the status of a soldier until his death. And the most important thing in the army is team spirit. And now the men didn't know what to do if there were 4 such teams. He asked Monica what would happen if 4 pretended to be 1. The girl, hearing this, was very shocked. She didn't even try to restrain herself and gasped in surprise right in front of the man. This made him feel uneasy. He understood perfectly well that she now considered him crazy. He asked her for forgiveness for this and said that, in fact, he had not gone crazy. He allowed himself such a deception. Perhaps he looked confused. However, what he wanted from her was still urgent. Therefore, before telling her what happened to his wound, he asked her again if Monica wanted to help him now. The girl reminded him that the production of this medicine was prohibited, and she could not believe that the man knew all this and still continued to ask her about it. He probably didn't care at all, even if she was under investigation and lost her status. But the guy said that she had to give him information, and then he would give her whatever she wanted in return. It could be money, things, or anything she wanted. Monica immediately refused the money because she was doing fine with it. She received a good salary in this mansion, so she definitely didn't need it. Then he asked what she thought about the recommendation for admission to the university. Monica, upon hearing this, immediately became interested, because this was truly her lifelong dream. And now that she heard of such an opportunity, she could not pass it up. This university was an institution with the highest concentration of educated people. All representatives of the kingdom and aristocracy flocked to this place. However, it was not enough to simply pass the entrance exams. Not only specialized subjects, but also basic ones. Beryl University needed a special student. For example, a person with a recommendation from a noble family that supported him. Monica could not even dream of this, because she never had a connection. However, now if she received a recommendation, she would be able to enter. Even if she doesn't pass the exam, there will be absolutely nothing to regret. After all, there was a whole line of aristocrats standing in line for exam tickets, so that their child would have a chance to get into this university. But even if that were the case, with the money she earned, Monica would have been able to pay for her studies at other universities. This was truly a chance for her to have a good future. This was nothing compared to the women's university that was destroyed by shelling after the war, while the man continued to persuade her. He told her that she could easily become a candidate at this university since entering some college was her dream. In fact, the man found out about this when he found out from Layla, and Monica was shocked when she heard about it. She promised the girl that she would never tell her story. However, for some reason, Layla could say it so easily, but she didn't know for sure. And she assumed that, most likely, it could also be Miss Malit. But it still really upset her. When the man asked what she thought, Monica said that he certainly offered excellent conditions for her, but she simply did not know what to do. Of course, for Monica, all of this was incredibly humiliating. However, if she enters this university, she will be able to work in her specialty as she wanted. So, be that as it may, she agreed to this deal. However, she had one condition before starting. She would like to check his condition. The man immediately replied that Luis and Garcia were all his names. Monica certainly guessed this. However, she asked where he got it from, how he even came up with it. But the man said that he didn't remember, and thereby disappointed Monica a little, because she had already come up with many scenarios for himself, according to which he could have several personalities within himself. Meanwhile, Layla returned to her room. She looked very tense. Mary tried to calm her down, but it was all useless. She was not even consoled by the thought that the man was supposed to come soon. The girl even yelled at her maid because of how nervous she felt. Of course, Layla was incredibly angry with Monica. She didn't understand why she ended up there at such an important moment, and believed that the girl had come to this city specifically to disgrace Layla. It took the girl a very long time in her childhood to remember her name, after which she really began to think about what became the real Layla Mallet. However, when Monica appeared in this place, she again returned to the girl the feeling that she had become an orphan again. And because of this, she was even more angry at Monica. But she was also irritated by the fact that she was now alone with Enrique and talking to him about something. But the girl could not even find out what the topic was. Enrique was the second son of a prominent family that had protected their kingdom throughout its long history, and therefore she had many different titles. But as soon as it became clear that the first son of the Sullivans, Pablo, was the main reason for the defeat, the family simply fell apart. The Sullivan family announced Pablo's death, but what's worse is that the king, in order to compensate for the defeat, took away more than half of the family's military awards. In the end, Mrs. Sullivan gave away the old mansions, antiques, and other things from the family, and the aristocrats simply turned away from them all. Instead of raising prices on items being sold due to competition, they agreed to buy everything cheap. At that moment, the Malitas extended their helping hand to this family. After all, they were truly kind, and Miss Soliwang's things were bought for a very high price. However, in the end, it was not a lawsuit and goodwill, as Layla initially thought. Her now new father planned to raise her low status through an arranged marriage, and Miss Sullivan expressed her gratitude for the marriage proposal, but ultimately refused the money, even though she was in a very stressed-out state. All that remained was the dowry provided by her father to cover her military awards. In fact, it was a renunciation of the wedding and such status only because the woman was a good mother and left the choice of marriage to her son. But Layla's father was not so benevolent. He ordered his daughter to do everything in her power so that the man would ultimately choose her. He believed that the time had come for her to repay for her upbringing, and if Layla had not done this, he would have sold her at the highest price by any means, and he would not have cared where exactly. Of course, Layla was very upset by this situation, because she had already promised to marry another man whom she really liked, and the girl did not know what to do. But father said that she should have married whoever he said, rather than go into a middle-class family. He explained that in a few days, Enrique would appear on the ballet, because it was obvious that he was from a wealthy family. So he called the girl his beloved daughter and advised her not to miss this wonderful opportunity for herself. Thus, having experienced the pain of divorce from the man she truly loved, Layla was supposed to become a perfect woman who knew no grief. The aristocrats always whispered about this news behind the girl's back, but the gossip quickly died down because they switched to Enrique. His personal life was always a secret, and this interested people greatly. He always danced only with women who had great devotion. Mostly his face was very serious. And then one day at a banquet, Layla didn't even suspect that he would come up and offer to dance with her. For her, this was a huge surprise. He even smiled when he suggested it, so the girl decided that everything was different with her. This smile was very sweet, and it allowed her to forget the feeling of pain from the dissolution of her previous marriage. At banquets, the man always danced with Layla, and then she thought that he was her savior. She was sure that everything would work out for her, so now that she had an obstacle in the form of Monica, Layla was not going to let this girl interfere with her life, which was finally starting to improve. Several years ago, when she left her shelter, she swore that she would not return to an unhappy life, and so Layla was going to keep this promise because she simply could not do otherwise. It took a lot of effort for an orphan to become part of an aristocratic family, so Layla knew that Monica would never recognize her. She probably didn't need that. In fact, Monica knew very well about the disease, namely personality disorder. Some believed that it was the work of ghosts. Some people said that these were just illusions caused by the imagination. Doctors did not consider this to be wrong, but Monica did not know how things really were, and perhaps would never have found out. Every time she lay in the orphanage on her old bed, she imagined herself as a princess who had been lost from a neighboring kingdom. Monica herself realized that even if she had developed a personality disorder against the backdrop of this sadness, she would not even have felt anything strange for her. All this would have been ordinary. Enrique, meanwhile, explained that these were all the names he knew, but not the names he remembered. He wakes up, a day passes, and sometimes even several days, but there was no difference. Things appeared in the room that he could not remember, and the man really was sometimes lost, not understanding where certain things came from. He understood that it would probably be quite difficult to understand this, so he decided to start with his return home after the war. Due to heavy shelling, he did not remember the day. He never returned. However, his mother came to him and said that due to the need to pay war reparations, she did not know what to do. She believed that he needed to go back to the South. There would be many girls with great devotion. His mother really thought that he would laugh at her, but the man understood the situation. He knew that she was probably in a lot of pain for her brother, and he understood how she felt, so he was going to do everything so that she would not suffer. Monica immediately guessed what Louis was saying then. The man continued his story, and she learned that on the day he was supposed to go south, he learned from his mother that he had received a wedding notice. He answered her irritably, and Monica realized that it was Garcia. But from that moment on, there was something beyond his understanding. One day, waking up in a terrible state, he found himself on a train and did not even remember how he got there or where he was going. He attacked his companion and was even ready to hit him. The man told him everything, and Enrique was very shocked by what he heard. As a result, his madness became more and more intense. He asked his assistant Andrew to find him a doctor, then continued searching on his own because no one was suitable or could help him. Eventually, in order to sort out all the situations, Enrique even began to correspond with himself and received responses from Luis and Garcia, so it became clear where these names came from. From Andrew's side, no new information was received because many doctors died during the war, so there were no good specialists left. Well then, after some time, he received a strange question from Luis about whether he had taken the green medicine. The man thought that maybe it was because he didn't take the green medicine that his madness appeared. Luis also thought so, and therefore pushed him to take this drug after all. Monica certainly didn't expect to hear this. She said that, in fact, it would only worsen the side effects. Be that as it may, his assistant had already found this medicine. For the first time in several years, he was finally able to get some sleep after taking it, and this pleasantly surprised Enrique. Previously, he suffered from insomnia for several days, so Luis and Garcia appeared. However, after taking this medicine, he really felt much better and stopped feeling like a stranger in his own home. Monica couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had never known anything like this before, namely, that this medicine could cure a personality disorder. But in any case, she warned him that if he took it for a long time, nothing good would happen, because no one knew about all the side effects of this thing. The man said that he didn't need to do this for a long time, at least until the wedding ceremony. It was an aristocratic wedding. One way or another, his family and he himself needed the money of another family. So he simply had no choice. Monica didn't understand what was happening because he despised Layla. She heard it clearly. But now he started talking about this wedding. After a short silence, The man finally asked if she was ready to help him. Monica didn't know what to do, but she simply asked him to keep his promise, since she had signed up for something like this. As a result, that evening, because of her worries, she could not sleep. Enrique began to pressure her. He needed this medicine as soon as possible, so he wanted to know how quickly she would get it. Monica didn't know how to prepare it, but she could only contact someone who knew. Therefore, she needed a certain amount of time. However, she didn't know exactly how long. Monica thought she was just so fascinated by the university that she didn't even think to ask where exactly she was supposed to go if she needed help or anything else. And besides, she didn't know whether she needed to give this medicine if it had side effects the next day. When Monica was having breakfast, she heard the maids gossiping about something as usual. This time, their conversation was about Layla and her lover, who still couldn't send her an engagement proposal. Then Monica realized that, most likely, since everyone was talking about it, these two were really going to get married. After yesterday's conversation, Layla was constantly near Monica. Of course, the girl understood why this was because she was very interested in what they were talking about there. Therefore, in order to find out some necessary information for herself, Monica decided to turn to a reliable person, namely Martin, and asked if Layla had really decided to marry the son of the Solvin family. The boy said that all of this was also true. He said that if he were a groom, he would only dance with his sister. But it was almost like an engagement because his sister had the greatest devotion. When Monica heard about the dowry, she immediately understood everything, because the man had mentioned the money problem more than once in their conversation. They spent some time in the garden and talked about everything under the sun, after which the doctor came again and examined the boy. Monica was left alone after her meeting with the doctor. She wanted to talk to Mr. Mikkel and asked him for a sleeping pill for herself. When the doctor heard that she also had insomnia, he was very surprised. But he had recently received a very good remedy, so he was ready to give it to her for free so that she could try it. But when Monica found out what this remedy was, she immediately refused it because it was a gas that made her smile. But if she took a deep breath, she could immediately fall asleep. In the end, the man still gave her a regular sleeping pill, because that's what he had to do. Of course, the girl decided to give the man a slightly weaker dose and observe before giving him the green medicine. In the evening, to Monica's surprise, Layla came to her. It's good that they reached her. Praise for the salt of the vein. But these words were conveyed by Monica. Therefore, she had no choice but to simply doubt. So the girl went crazy with curiosity. For what reason did she come? For some time, Layla tried to knock on her room, but she was unable to get in because Monica locked herself in and did not want to let her in. In the end, she just gave in, and the girl laughed incredibly loudly after seeing the whole situation. Of course, Monica was Layla A's servant and bowed her head before her. However, the girl will never be able to cope with life in her place because she does not know what kind of life Monica lived and how much she had to go through. And Layla's icy gaze, which she did on purpose, meant absolutely nothing to the girl. Every day, she found herself in even greater odoo in her past. For example, her first patient was a man who was trying hard to walk with an amputated leg. He was the kind of person whose behavior became a support for others. Monica still hasn't forgotten the day when he actually managed to get to bed on crutches on his own. But no matter how optimistic this man was, he still gave in under the pressure of life and hanged himself. Monica found his first body and was simply horrified. No matter what disinfectant she used, the smell of death still did not disappear after she cleaned there. She also found the same green medicine at the scene of his death. On that day, parts of Monica's heart died along with this patient. However, she did not allow herself to be sad about this death. The girl simply couldn't. She pulled out the body and changed the sheet. And after some time, a new soldier appeared who injured his eyes. He couldn't fall asleep easily, but it was also very difficult for him to stay awake. Many nurses told him to take the green medicine. After all, it could easily help him, but Monica was already wary of this medicine. But Monica still couldn't shake the thought that if the man really took this medicine, he would end up like the other patients, and she didn't know what decision was best for her to make. Of course, the girl wanted to become a person who saves people. Even being an orphan, she wanted everything to work out for her, but life still played a cruel joke on her. Suffering from insomnia, she recalled the director of her shelter, whose recipe was to turn cut grass into juice and give it to a wounded patient to drink. The first time he fell into a deep sleep was after Monica followed this advice, and the joy of that time was unimaginable, so she was not going to give in so easily to Layla, who was trying to pressure her. It would be incredibly stupid on her part, because now she finally had a chance to study at the academy and improve her knowledge, and she certainly wasn't going to miss it. When Monica woke up the next morning, her head was full of memories of the hospital on the battlefield. They had not appeared to her for a very long time, and so she was shocked. A place where there was only a lot of blood and screams, just some kind of personality disorder, meant nothing to Monica, so she could easily even be next to Enrique. For her, these pills that she tried worked simply amazingly, so she was going to go to the place where the man lived in order to give him some as well. When evening came, she finally went to the right place. However, there was no one there. Monica stood there for a long time, and it was already getting dark outside. The girl did not understand why this happened. It was already time for her to put Martin to bed, but she still had not met Enrique to give him this thing. In fact, the boy was full of energy from the very morning, and when it was time to put him to bed, he still wanted to continue having fun, because he was a child after all. In the end, Monica was about to leave as soon as possible. She hadn't had dinner, so she wanted to eat, but she couldn't do it because she had to hurry. And then Hans suddenly came out to meet her, and in a stern voice asked where the girl was heading. Monica quickly came up with an alibi for herself and said that the medicine the doctor gave her didn't work well, so she decided to go for a walk to try to fall asleep after that. Although this was, of course, a lie, Hans offered to take a walk with her. It was already very late and dangerous, but Monica understood that she couldn't let even one living soul see her in the vicinity of the Solvin family estate, so she said that she could walk on her own. Monica couldn't refuse the fact that the man was very persistent by nature, so he walked her straight to the city and also gave her several compliments about her appearance. This was the clothes that Louis bought. It was a pretty comfortable dress to wear to work. That's why Monica often wore it. Soon they came to the right alley, and Hans said that she was heading about her business, and he turned in the other direction, pretending that he was not at all interested in where she was going. She certainly suspected something. However, she didn't have much time, so immediately after he had gone far enough, she went to the desired estate again. Now she finally heard the voice of Enrique's assistant, who opened the door and let her inside. Monica no longer had to wait very long, and the man escorted her straight to Enrique. Of course, the guy immediately frowned when he saw her. He didn't understand why she came to him at such a late hour. The girl said that she brought his medicine. However, the man suggested that they sit down and drink some tea first, so they moved to his office so that it would be comfortable for everyone. The man was very surprised that she decided to bring him the medicine so quickly, because he thought that it would take her several weeks to get it. Monica couldn't lie to him, so she simply said that she brought him sleeping pills. The man, of course, reacted to this with great surprise. He didn't understand why she brought him another jar of sleeping pills, even though he already had a whole collection. Monica was amazed when she saw this large collection of medicines, but the man lit a cigar so as not to upset her, but nevertheless took her medicine and looked at it carefully. He immediately recognized him. In fact, he had taken something similar before, so after giving Monica the medication, he told her not to do anything stupid. She already wanted to explain something to him. However, Enrique said in a stern voice that whoever the girl was, she should behave like a person who just wants to get her money. Therefore, he would really like her to prepare the necessary medicine for him and only then come. Monica, hearing all this, was very shocked. She did not understand why she felt so depressed, but for some reason, she really felt sad that the man did not want to accept her help, although she tried very hard. She, like no one else, knew all the consequences of this terrible medicine, and therefore she did not want any living soul to take it ever again. When he continued to be rude and express his dissatisfaction with Monica, she suddenly jumped up and said that she wanted to tell him something. The man did not even show much interest in it. He just tore off his check and handed her the amount, saying that he was finished and did not want to continue all this anymore. When Monica looked at this check, she was very surprised because there was an incredibly large sum of money. It was even much more than her salary. She didn't understand why he gave them to her, but the man explained that, of course, he could force people to work for free, and if she remembered how to prepare the medicine, she could use the money to buy all the necessary ingredients. After that, He asked if there was anything else she wanted to tell him, but Monica bowed and said that she would do everything in her power. After receiving the money, she changed significantly. It was too much money for her to get angry and express her dissatisfaction, so she only asked how long it had been since the man could sleep normally. Enrique replied that this had been going on for 2 days already, and when he asked if everything was normal with her sleep, she said that when she put her head on the pillow, she immediately fell asleep. Husband said that it was very good. After all, when he lays his head on the pillow, the rest of the night lasts forever. And he was thinking about marrying Miss Mallet, and there was a big reason for this. He asked Monica if she wanted to know, and her girlfriend, of course, said she did.